This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country, and we join their calls for justice. Have you read the Australian Financials Review list of the 10 most powerful people in Australia in 2022? The power list.
No, I haven't.
You know what? That's okay.
I've skimmed.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know what the point of it is.
What's the criteria?
What? You're powerful? You've got a lot of power? It's a vibe of power,
they vibe it?
They vibe it?
There aren't, like, measurable, you know?
Well, Anthony Albanese, who's the Prime Minister, is number one. So, breaking news, the Prime Minister of the country has power, I guess. Has a lot of power.
Intriguing.
And they have this little panel that they get together that sort of, they do like a little bio on each entry, and then they sort of have a panel that share their thoughts and their reflections on why they think this person is an appropriate entry in the power list.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get into this journalist game. It seems so fucking easy. It's so good. Number one, Anthony Albanese, and this is a quote from Michael Stutchbury. Albo has ditched all the shortened big end of town populist rhetoric. That was his quote.
Is that the kind of thing they're saying? And that's why he's powerful, not because he's the Prime Minister of Australia. Well, I guess that's why he's the Prime Minister of Australia.
They laid out sort of like, he's done all this stuff in his first couple of days, in his first 100 days or whatever. He's like achieving these things. He's won the first majority government since 2007. There's a little outline, and then they have all these little nuggets of wisdom from the panel, including that from Michael Stutchbury. And you might be surprised to learn that the feedback from the panel put together by the AFR are extremely keen on Labor not being a Labor party, of course, and not taking on the rich and being very pro-business, remarkably.
It's so interesting to get this commentary, always so surprising and insightful.
Number two, Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer. Now, this is a quote from Lydia Ivanovsky, who I've never heard of. But she says, Jim is in charge of the Expenditure Review Committee of Cabinet, so he does have the power to control what spending happens and what gets cut.
Wow. I'm learning so much. You're telling Okay, so what? Does the one under Anthony Albanese be like, the Prime Minister is the head of state in Australian Parliament?
Parents, teachers, friends, all. The Oxford Dictionary.
Webster Dictionary defines treasurer as...
I looked up. Lydia Ivanovsky was the chief of staff of the 2022 federal Labor campaign. Okay, she's the director of
she understands what a treasurer is.
Consulting. So she knows what a treasurer is.
Enacta, classic Labor lobbyist firm.
Are they a big one? Okay, well.
Yeah, they're big in Queensland in particular.
Oh, Jesus. Well, of course. Well, I guess Jim is from Queensland. So there you go. You'll be hearing some more wonderful insights from Lydia in just a moment. Number three is Penny Wong. Number four was all of the Teals on the crossbench.
My favourite person.
My favourite one person. So powerful, the Teals. Just incredible power that they're wielding. Huge power.
Powerful. Yeah, they're going to stop. They're going to save the turtles, you guys. They really are.
Stephen Smith, the former Labor minister, he's part of the panel deciding who's on the power list. And he says the Teals now regard themselves as a political movement, not a political party. But as a political movement, they've effectively become overnight the Liberal Party's DLP. It's structurally impossible for the Liberal Party to win an election without reconciling the seats that the Teals have won off them. I think that makes the Teals deeply socially and politically significant, and currently much more so than the Greens.
No, that was you. That was the media that made them powerful. It was literally you guys, but keep going.
Go off, King. Number five was Richard Marles. Number six, Sally McManus posing for a photo with a megaphone.
She loves doing that.
Number seven, Philip Lowe for the Reserve Bank. Yep, you would understand that.
Wait, who's this at number 8? I know this guy.
You know this guy. Number 8, ding, 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 the absolute boy, Adam fucking Bant.
Wow, my friend's powerful.
Declaring a Greensland in the wake of the federal election. What do you think of that, Emerald? Bant delivered what few had predicted. The minor party recorded its best ever result, adding 3 new lower house seats and increasing representation in the Senate to 12. After wiping out Liberals and would-be Labor Minister Terry Butler, RIP, Bant renamed the Sunshine State Greensland and set himself up as a critical deal-maker for the Albanese government.
Bant renamed the Sunshine State Greensland. Fucking Melbourne is taking credit for Queensland things.
Victorian Greens taking credits for Queensland things.
Yeah.
This is another great insight from Lydia Ivanovsky. The Greens went forward despite Bant, If you look at where they made inroads, it was where there were no teals. Why has Band not been able to build a power base in Victoria, the People's Republic? I would argue they were just beneficiaries of other circumstances.
Wow, this is maybe the dumbest person I've ever heard. Sorry, Lydia, you're stupid. Just has absolutely no.
How about Lydia's number one on the stupid list? Am I right?
Just, nothing new to say. She's read an article. She's read a few articles in the AFR to prepare for this that were analysing the federal election and was Adam Bent. There were no teals. Interesting.
Yeah, he did terribly in Victoria, increasing his majority to one of the biggest majorities in the whole country. Greens came very close to winning McNamara. I think they'll be pretty happy, Lydia.
But for me, it's that I would argue that they were just beneficiaries of other circumstances.
Yes,
that's
it's just impossible to imagine a world.
Yeah, it's always
in
this.
Which the
I don't know what it was, but it wasn't them. It was something else. I don't know.
How about this one from our good friend Dee Madigan? Because there's no upper house in Queensland, the Greens got much better at ground campaigning. They're actually much better there because they're not going for Senate votes.
What? What is that? How? Why?
Well, I guess in the state elections, you're not running for the Senate, so then you get better at the lower house thing. But then in the federal election, you were running for upper house Senate votes, and we won an extra senator.
I guess I kind of get that right, so that maybe influences our emphasis on field campaigning rather than a media campaign across the state. That's not true, though. I think that just our political strategy foregrounds field campaigning. I have never in any conversations about the argument for Dawn or King heard people be well, because we have no upper house in Queensland.
Yes, we have no choice but to knock on people's doors and listen to what people think. Yeah. Which is again cheating, of course.
Yeah.
Stephen Smith's contribution. Again, no one just recognising the fact that the Greens have done well or, what that actually means politically. It's all just fucking bitter Labor people saying, no, they're not that good. Yes, they've got a record number of seats, but the key is how are they dealt with in the Senate, not the House. Okay, Stephen,
okay. Fine. Cool.
So that's number 8. That's pretty good in the power list, I gotta say.
Number 8 is so good.
I mean, obviously we hate the power list and it's stupid. But if you're going to have a power list, get the leader of the Greens in there. That's good. Number 9 is Michael Cannon-Brookes, who's worth $28 billion, by the way.
Sucked in, we beat you.
We beat you, yes.
Go buy a fucking energy company. I don't know.
And number 10 is Peter Dutton.
Oh, sucked in.
Who is the leader of the Liberal Party, opposition
Sucks
leader.
To be less powerful than
Adam Band more powerful than him. He was number 10 last year. And again, some incredible insights here from the panel of the power list. If a couple of boats make it through, you could imagine him trying to use question time to exploit something like that. Thanks, Lydia.
Oh, this is really, sorry, as a feminist, I should stop. But Lydia, you sound like you are in university.
Well, how about you shit on this woman who doesn't identify as a feminist? Julie Bishop says, he is the leader of the opposition and essentially the success of an opposition lives and dies on the performance of the leader. Jesus.
He is the leader of the opposition. Well, Tom, he is the leader of the opposition. She's not wrong. I don't really care about this list. As a Queenslander, I only cared about the Courier Mail's Power 100, which came out before this.
Yes.
Based on similarly spurious criteria, I'm sure. They released it over a week as well. They had Sport 100 and then they did 100 to 50 and then they're our 50 to 1 is coming soon. And you know who made it into the top 50?
Emerald Moon?
No. That just goes to show how shit their criteria is. But our boy Max Chandler-Mather coming in at number 48, described as Griffith MP / Greens power broker. The descriptions in the Courier one were much better. It says, fresh-faced and energetic, the new Griffith MP looks like he walked out of a university lecture theatre and into the corridors of power owned.
What?
But Max Chandler-Mather has been a backroom power broker for the Greens since Councillor Jonathan Sriranganathan, they didn't put his full name, was just a guy in a rainbow scarf in the periphery of a press conference.
Jesus.
The smart money is on Chandler-Mather quickly emerging as the face of the Greens federally, with his power in Queensland built on the fact both major parties now fear him. Honestly, the point about both major parties, I like that. Yeah, we were very proud. Especially he beat Clive Palmer, fucking billionaire, was only 97. Ian McFarlane from Queensland Resources Council was number 94. So, we actually win elections. Someone, a friend of mine, Ellie, pointed out, shout out Ellie, she listens to the podcast. And although Max was less powerful than the Premier's boyfriend, I don't even remember his name, they just like to point out she has a boyfriend, he is more powerful than her dad. But do you want to know the spiciest thing about the courier list?
Go on.
The premier in the courier mail list was only number 2. Because who's really pulling the strings in Queensland? Can you guess?
Cameron Dick?
No, he was someone. No. It's the courier mail. The most powerful person in Queensland is the head of the United Workers Union.
Oh.
Because the unions are pulling the strings.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They would have
again. Yeah. They think that's bad, but that's good.
I know, but then they ran. This is what I mean when I'm like, so what's the criteria for who decides who the most powerful person is? They then run from their own list that they've decided. Then they run the headline that was like, shock, result, premier knocked from number 1 spot in this list that we wrote to make a point that unions run everything.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, I love News Corp.
Well, you're number 1 on my power list, Emerald Moon.
Oh, you're number 2 on mine.
Oh, fuck.
Mike's number 1 on mine.
Oh, that's sweet.
Talk about the Greens, that bunch of idiots.
A deadly, slippery slope. Totalitarian, anti-democratic. Give this party real power and we could really pay.
Frankly, I've always found the Greens to be a real serious danger to Australia.
Serious danger to Australia.
All right, this is Serious Danger, a podcast about green politics in Australia, the most powerful podcast there is. This is not an official Greens Party podcast. It is made possible with the help of the Green Institute and our producer, Michael the Griffin, a very powerful man. This week, we're chatting to... Was Larissa Waters on the power list?
No, but you know that thing about Jono being in the background of a press conference with a rainbow scarf, that was a reference to the famous press conference with Larissa when she resigned.
Queensland Senator Larissa Waters, legend, Green Party spokesperson for women and for democracy. Finally getting her on the pod. Very excited about having a conversation with her about many things, about what the fuck's going on in Parliament at the moment and some cool wins that the Greens have got. That's going to be good.
Yeah. But for that, just want to let you know, Tom, we now have 440 patrons.
Whoa!
You may be aware. We got 440 patrons. We have some new ones we want to shout out. John K, Aaron, Laura, Logan, Jack, Brenda, Jay Miller, Jay, Robert, and Jim. And I was thinking, when is your birthday, Tom?
My birthday's on November 26th, the same day as the Victorian State Election.
That's right. How could I forget? Also, the same day as the first ever Serious Danger recording. Remember?
That's right. We recorded on my birthday, I believe.
On your birthday.
Yes.
And so I think before your birthday, we should set a goal for ourselves because we're all about setting goals here. You know, smart. What are they? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, something.
Vision boards. Yep. All that.
500 patrons by your birthday. Do you think we can do it?
No way, Emerald. That's impossible. We'd never be able to get to 500.
Well, gee, but maybe if we had, you know, people behind us, we could.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe if everyone who's thinking about becoming a patron but hasn't become a patron yet signed up, we could make it. And for those who are a patron or who listen to the show and don't want to be a patron but want to help us grow our audience, could tell people about the show, we could make it. That's my Disney voice.
Hey, Adam Band, if you listen to this shit, you're the 8th most powerful person in the fucking country.
Yeah. Can you get us 500 patrons, please?
To become patrons, please. Patreon.com/Serious Danger AU. That is a little target that we've set ourselves. We would love to get to 500. Obviously, we love all our current patrons. We know not everyone can become a patron. If you've thought about it and you want to take the leap, we'd really appreciate it. That'd be great. Or, giving us a 5-star review or telling a friend about the show. That really helps spread the word and helps us build our power even more to the point where we could indeed top the list at some point.
Maybe when we get 500, then we'll release our list of the top 50 most powerful patrons, according to us.
And you get stuff. You don't just do us a favor. We do provide you with bonus content. This week, we put out an episode with Cam Wilson, the associate editor at Crikey, who went along to CPAC 2022, the Conservative Coachella, the Conservative Political Action Conference, filled with a bunch of incredible freaks. And he gave us the lowdown on how freaky they are, how silly they are, and how mildly scary some of them are. Those are the kind of episodes we want to do more bonus content. We want to share that with you, and thank you very much for becoming patrons. But if you want to sign up, you'll be able to listen to that and all the back catalogue, including our ep with Will Anderson and John Kadelka and little stuff that Emerald and I have done together. Patreon.com/Serious Danger AU 500 patrons by my birthday to be the greatest 33-year-old birthday present a little guy could ever ask for.
Little guy.
Please help us out.
Are you excited to talk to Larissa?
I love Larissa. Yes, no, I'm stoked. It's great to welcome another MP back onto the show. And Larissa, how long has Larissa been there? Like elected? When did she get elected?
Just over 10 years. It was 2011.
God damn.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
And she's your girlfriend. Is that right?
She's my girlfriend. Maybe you can embarrass me by telling her, because I don't know if I've ever fully explained to her how obsessed I was with Larissa or spoken about it on the show. Like, I wouldn't be here doing a stupid non-official Greens Party podcast if it weren't for Larissa.
Oh, my God. All right, let's save it. I will embarrass you about that with her. Let's talk to her now. Queensland Greens Senator, the one and only Larissa Waters.
Pursuant to order, I now call Senator Waters to make her first speech.
It is with great pride that I give my first speech today, the first ever speech of a Green senator representing Queensland. Queensland has a long history of Green activism, but it has taken us 20 years to gain a seat in federal parliament. So today is a historic occasion. I'm privileged to be the first Green elected at any level of government in Queensland. A congruence of history, many years of campaigning by dedicated people, the inspirational leadership of Senator Bob Brown, and being in the right place at the right time has meant that this remarkable opportunity has fallen to me.
All right, we wanted to start by me embarrassing Emerald. I'm not sure if you're aware, Larissa, but the reason why Emerald joined the Greens, the reason why she's so passionate about the party, the reason why she now works for the Greens and is doing this goddamn podcast is because she fell in love with you and developed a massive crush upon you and was obsessed with Larissa Waters' phenomenon and followed you around. Were you across this at all?
Platonic political crush. Like, let's just to be clear. I don't know. Like, I feel like Larissa knows that I very much admire you and you're a big reason that I joined the party. But maybe not the extent of the important role you played.
I'm so deeply flattered by that and feel instantly not worthy of it, but also that's really lovely. And you were such a great candidate and hopefully will be again, but also are good at all of the other things that you do. So we're just really thrilled to have you, and I feel a bit embarrassed but also really touched, so thanks.
I mean, I think I reckon that would be the case for a lot of people, especially in Queensland, that get involved with the party. Like, I remember, it was probably around 2016, 2017, so right before the Canada thing happened. You were just doing a lot of cool shit. You know, you were breastfeeding in the Senate. You were I remember you were firing back at John Howard, some bullshit thing that John Howard said on TV, and I was like, this is really cool.
Oh yeah, something about women doing the ironing. Oh no, just no.
Yeah.
It's a cool job. You get to say the things that you actually think and, fight against this systemic patriarchy that is still clinging on despite it being completely out of date and never acceptable in the first place. So, I do get to do cool things and say stuff that, other people don't get the opportunity to say, but I'm sure a lot of people are thinking and are glad when they're said. So I feel very privileged to be able to I hope I can do people justice.
But not just other people, other politicians, right? Because you must be seeing Labor MPs, maybe the coalition speaks more freely because they're allowed to say their horrible right-wing views. But, the frustration I see is Labor MPs, often, men and women who are, perfectly intelligent people, yada, 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 but who are constrained by this horrible party system where they have to, stick to this line that they don't believe. We all know they don't believe it, but they are compelled to keep saying bullshit. That is, again, a great thing, I think, about the Greens, right?
Mm. Yeah, we are certainly much more honest about what we actually think.
Yeah.
There's still an element of censorship, which is a bit crap about politics. I do think that actually the thing that most appeals to ordinary people is when people who are elected to represent them are authentic and are genuine, and you can tell when someone actually means what they say or when they're trotting out a line. You can just tell. Yeah. So I think that's why there's been a rise in popularity of people who are perceived to speak their mind without a filter, because the people are craving that authenticity in public life, because there's so much, veneering and zhuzhing of our MPs, and if you look at the transformation of a prime minister someone who's had some other role where they were like quite strong and you thought, oh yeah, they're a pretty good communicator. I like the way they present themselves. And then they become more senior and then they turn into this robot. And, I don't think it really works anyway.
No, I don't think,
So, they can do what they like. They should just do a better job to run the country and fix things.
Yeah, which is why I think I mentioned this in the intro, and I was saying to Tom that I was just before I was watching on YouTube and looking for clips for the show, the press conference that you did when you had to resign back in 2017 because you were an accidental Canadian.
Yeah.
I just want to apologise to my party and to all of the wonderful Queenslanders that I've been so proud to represent in the last 6 years. I will sadly have to resign, both as the Deputy Leader of the Greens and as the Senator for Queensland. This is not a reflection on our party at all. This was my job to have disclosed this.
It's a really emotional press conference. I was tearing up,
I've never gone back and watched it because that's weird to go back and watch yourself. But it was like my whole thing all the time is that I don't want to embarrass the Greens, and I want to be well informed, and I want to make sure our party is presented well, and try to encourage social change for good. And so I was just fucking mortified that I'd made this enormous fuck up.
Which
and it was like all of the worst things and all of the worst fears had become real. And it was my own stupid fault, but also I was totally innocent and had no idea genuinely.
Yeah, no, it's terrible, no stupid system.
I should have known. So anyway, that was really awful.
I mean, I know, and you can see, in retrospect, we now know that there were all these people that fucked up like this and had to resign, and really, it's not, it's really not a personal failing on your part. But I can see, I think particularly for you as Queensland's representative in there, I think there was and has been for so long a lot of weight on your shoulders to represent Queensland and the Queensland Greens in the federal Senate. And you can see that on your face when you're speaking in this, that you feel as though you'd let us down, which, obviously so far from the truth. But yeah, and now 10, I guess 5 years on from that, but more than 10 years on from when you were first elected, you finally have some friends from Queensland in Parliament. I don't know if people, I think surely that can't be overstated how long you've waited for this. And obviously you had Greens friends, but I think there's something different to have Queenslanders in there with you, right?
It's just brilliant. I on the night, because I was watching the figures, and I've watched a few elections now, so you kind of know from the first poll results, which are always the tiny far-flung booths, so the Green vote will be low, but it was double what it normally is. And I just I felt electric from that moment, and I'm even getting shivers remembering it. And I remember rocking up to that awesome party, which is the best party ever, and seeing Kitty, our state director, on the stairs and just saying, Kitty, we have won big. Oh my God, I think we're going to win everything. And just being a mixture of relief that I didn't have to carry all of it anymore with the help of amazing staff and a whole amazing party, but the sense of responsibility, I could finally share that, and not just share it with other people, but share it with fucking great people who are all brilliant. You could not think of better reps, except perhaps you, Emerald, and perhaps you, Tom. So by all means, please run as candidates.
Always trying to recruit candidates, Larissa.
I know. Well, you need good people in politics. But it was a mixture of the sheer relief on a personal level, but it was also just the relief that we could finally get stuff done in the country to fix all of the massive problems that we've got. So it was such a wild night, and I was just overwhelmed with joy.
Yeah.
And then I lost my voice, so it was just...
That's right. I remember the next day.
I don't have to say anything, and I've got no voice, but it doesn't matter.
You literally
couldn't speak. People, they could do anything. It was the best press conference ever.
Yeah, it's almost poetic, isn't it? That you
lovely.
could just allow all these fucking beautiful, fresh new people to jump in and, take the load.
Who are just smashing it, and have been so brilliant and authentic and hardworking and real from day one, and will continue to be. And people will love them because they're in it for the right reasons. They're working hard. They're not getting caught up in the nonsense of politics, which nobody likes except these sort of elite politicians themselves. They're just ordinary people with good values and they're really fun. They're great people. So I'm so pleased and proud of them, and so happy with where our party in Queensland has gotten to, because there's so many people that have worked for so many years and finally we feel like we're breaking through and we've got a chance to make more of a difference, which is, of course, what we're motivated by in the first place.
Yeah. Since that night, I mean, it'd be interesting in your thoughts how you feel like the 45th Parliament is going. Obviously, the Greens are killing it. Represent, great work, fantastic. How do you think the new Labor government is doing and how it's all sort of shaken out, and what have you made over the past few weeks, I suppose? A lot of talk about the stage 3 tax cuts might go, and then, oh no, apparently they're not going anywhere. What's your summary of the 45th Parliament thus far?
It's weird so far, Tom, and maybe I've still got PTSD from 9 years of awfulness, and I genuinely think I do, and so many, the whole freaking country does. But I can't yet categorise it. Like, there's so much hope invested in this new government. There's so much craving for decent policy, and the problems that we've got have just gotten so much worse. It feels like you couldn't ignore them as a new government, and yet we haven't really seen any bold action yet. So I'm like, I don't want to give up yet that we can fix the problems that we're facing. So like, half of me is optimistic and determined, and the other half is like, why aren't they better yet? Why didn't they hear the message that I think is obvious, that people want a fucking house. They want a job seeker rate that they can live on. They want dental and mental in Medicare. They want climate action, and they don't want big polluters to be able to donate. Like, pretty basic stuff that you should expect from a government, no matter what nation you live in or what day and age it is. And so, I'm still hopeful, and I haven't passed judgment yet, but it's there's a lot riding on this first budget, and if they keep the stage 3 tax cuts, I think there'll just be a lot of broken hearts around the country. Because when you vote for change, not crazy to expect that you get change. And if you actually got the same shitty policies, what was the fucking point? So, I mean, sorry to be a bit sweary, but I really think that they've got a lot to prove, and we want them to be better. We like this formulation of having a Labor government and the Greens in the balance of power. We've worked before and gotten good stuff done. We've got dental into Medicare for kids. We've got world-leading climate laws. People probably know all of that. We've got good stuff. It's a formula that can work. But, we want them to be better. And we'll keep pushing and trying to get what we can get. And we did okay with the 43%. We've got some improvements on that. But the fight's not over. We've got this safeguard mechanism coming soon, which is where the rubber will really hit the road. And we're still fighting about not opening new coal and gas. I mean, come on, this is basic stuff. So, the jury's out, really. I want it to be good. The country needs us to work to fix the problems we're facing. And, we just need Labor to be brave. And if we're the ones that have to push them to do that, well, we've done it before and we'll do it again. But come on. I mean,
I like the optimism. I totally agree, and it is probably still too early. But my inherent cynicism kicks in, because my understanding is that it's not like governments get braver over time, right? Like you get this sort of you get this initial period in which they're riding high in the polls. They are very popular. That sense of change and hope is totally there. The conditions could not be better to reverse something like the stage 3 tax cuts, for example, like in terms of how shitty the economics is and how popular they are and how much time they've got before the next election. So as the closer we get to that, it's just like the further they will double down on their centrist/centre-right positions. But
it just makes no sense though, does it, Tom? Because people didn't like the last people.
No,
they voted out the last government.
Do what they did.
Want something different.
Why do those?
So why have this paper thin difference between the two? Why not get the message that actually people want bold policy change? We've just had a pandemic where I think it really enabled people to look afresh at their governments and think, okay, what do I actually want out of this arrangement, this democracy that we allegedly have? Well, I want my basic needs met. I want to know that we can get health equipment when we need it, and vaccines and medicines. I want our nurses to be properly paid. I want to have a roof over my head. People have really... COVID's given us an opportunity to reassess what it is that we demand from our polity, to actually make some radical policy that's not really radical at all. It just meets people's needs. And I would recoil in horror at the idea that there's a shrinking window and that they might be even less progressive as we get closer to the next election. Because if they, Anyway,
Well,
that's why the Greens exist, and that's why our vote continues to go up. So, that's great, but we actually want the outcomes. We don't have a lot of time to lose anymore. Like people are in poverty. We are in a climate crisis. Yeah. Like shit's getting pretty real.
Yeah, and it's as though, I mean, Labor is buying into like this cynical assessment of their success that comes from people and organisations with clear motives like Murdoch, like News Corp, who want to say that the reason that they won is because they took a small target strategy or because they went more centrist or further to the right, and that's what they need to do to keep winning. And like buying into that, though, it's bullshit. It's not actually why people voted for them. It's just what
I agree.
Those vested interests want.
I don't know how they get that message. Like, how can they miss the memo?
Yeah.
Abortion is not a debate. Abortion is healthcare, and healthcare is a human right.
Anyway, but yes, we are. Meanwhile, the Greens are just like doing what we do and like fighting for, to scrap the stage 3 tax cuts. All of our MPs, I think, are doing good things in their portfolios. The thing that it seems like is on the in the foreground for you at the moment is abortion access and reproductive health care. I know that I think a couple of weeks ago in the Senate, you successfully passed a motion to establish this inquiry into universal access to reproductive health care. You've been hosting, forums. What's the inquiry going to actually do? Like, what's the purpose of this inquiry?
Well, yeah, thank you. First big win is to get up a Senate inquiry that looks at what are the barriers to people getting the reproductive health care that they need. So that's abortion access. But it's also like decent access to birthing options. It's also decent access to contraception. Like it's the full gamut.
Yeah.
And people, I think when Roe v. Wade was repealed in the US, like it was a global, people noticed like women's rights are under attack now, and it's 2022. And the fact that The Handmaid's Tale might be real is just so confronting and like unbelievable, but in fact true. So the reaction, I think, from Roe v. Wade being repealed in the US was for Australians to say, well, thank fuck we don't have that legal system, but also what are our rights to access abortion when we want one? And it became more publicly known that whilst it might be legal everywhere bar WA, and like get with the program WA, we're working on that, whilst the law's not so much a hurdle anymore, you still can't access it. There's public hospitals still don't provide universal abortion access. And I mean, what? You're a hospital. That's your job. Like, provide healthcare services. You've got one job. You actually get money for that. So do the thing. And if you've got doctors that don't want to do the thing, well, put them in a different area and get the doctors in that will do the thing, because that's actually your duty as a doctor, in my humble opinion. Anyway, so you've got to drive for hundreds of kilometres or fly to a different city centre to get an abortion. And if you don't get in soon enough, so where you can use your medical abortion, then you're stuck with hundreds of dollars of expense to travel to get a surgical abortion. And it's just unbelievable to me that people who don't have a spare few $100s, which is most people, might end up having to have a baby that they hadn't planned on and that actually don't want it this time in their lives. And as a parent of two, like, it's a big responsibility. You want to go into that arrangement wanting it and knowing that you've got the, the mental and the emotional and the financial means to be a good parent. And it just, I almost can't put it into words because it's so incredulous to me that we might be in a situation where people can force to become parents when they're not ready to be and they don't want to be. Like, what the actual?
Yeah.
So, anyway, we've got a Senate inquiry up that can say, what can the feds do? Because the states have mostly fixed the laws with the exception of WA. But the federal government have tended to say, well, this is not really our problem. This is the state government's job. It's not, because number of things. The federal government funds public hospitals partially, and they could say, well, if you want our money, you've got to provide the full range of reproductive health services to people that need an abortion. So women and people with wombs should be able to get that in a public hospital. So they could say, well, that's a precondition of receiving federal funding. And that was, in fact, Labor's policy in 2019.
Not anymore?
That was one of the things that got dumped as their small target strategy approach to the last election. So they're now not touching that with a barge pole. And, they've got a few religious people in their own ranks. And I'm not a religious person. I respect that other people might find that meaningful for them, but you can't impose your views on other people. If you don't want an abortion, fine, don't have
get
one.
one.
But you actually don't get to tell anybody else that they can't have one. That's not how it should work. So anyway, Labor have dumped that policy, but they should pick it back up again. But the second thing that can be done is listing abortion as an MBS item. So that means putting it into Medicare so that those out-of-pocket expenses, when you've got to go to the GP multiple times, you've got to pay for the pills, you've got to get your ultrasound. There's a range of processes that have to be done even to get a medical abortion that costs hundreds of dollars. Now, no one's got that, and it's healthcare. We should have a healthcare system that is genuinely covered by Medicare. And I mean, as you know, the Greens think there shouldn't be any out-of-pocket gap fees for medical care. You should be able to go to your doctor and not have to pay that gap fee because it's healthcare. That's what we pay taxes for.
Yes.
That's kind of part of the social contract of our democracy, I think. We think so. Yes, there's lots of things that could be done. They will require a budget allocation. So that's why we've set this inquiry up, essentially to report right before the May budget, or a couple of months before the May budget, with the idea that we can build momentum, hear the horror stories of women and people with wombs right around the country about how hard it is to get the basic healthcare they need, and increase the pressure on Labor to do the right thing and make those changes. So, wish us luck.
And I quite like the shifting in the framing of reproductive health as an issue and abortion access as an issue, away from just the legislative change to resourcing and access. I actually think that it moves it out of a sort of liberal feminist space into one that is very intersectional and class-based, because when we're just talking about legislating access, obviously that's important, reproductive healthcare shouldn't be a criminal offence. That's just fucking basic. But recognizing that just creating that legal framework doesn't work for everyone. Like, our laws don't apply equally to everyone when they're, when poor people can't access something, when people regional areas can't access something, when it's, harder for working class people of colour a lot of the time are more greatly impacted by this. So I think that actually bringing it into this space is really important politically. So I do wish you luck, because it's so important.
Yeah, you're right. I think they thought we'd tick the box and so it was okay now, but no. The real box is, can people meaningfully access this service?
Everyone.
Close to home, free of charge, without any sort of bullshit stigma or discrimination from so-called health professionals. Is this real for people, or is it just a law that passed that isn't really changing anything on the ground?
It's kind of ideological thing. Yeah.
Can I ask, Larissa, are there other people who make up the Senate inquiry? Often we'll get these inquiries and they'll be made up with people from across the political spectrum, and there'll be a dissenting report from people with particularly strong views. Are there people who are known to have anti-abortion of politics making up this inquiry, or who's going to be joining you on this thing?
I don't know the answer to that, actually, because it's gone to the Community Affairs Standing Committee. So it's a references inquiry. So actually the chair is our Green Senator Janet Rice from Victoria. Who's just a wonderful lady and a very good senator. So she'll be an excellent chair. And I actually haven't even checked on who will be the permanent members, because there's normal permanent members of committees, but you can sub people in and out. So I will be watching to see if the other parties take off their moderate people and put on some of their fanatics. I really hope not, but we will see. That's up to them. So I'll be on there, Janet will be on there, and it will be a multi-partisan committee, as they always are. And then it's up to the government to say, well, we either will accept these recommendations or soz, we're not going to.
They never do that, though. I mean, if you set up an inquiry and you get all these experts and you get ordinary people sharing their stories and you come up with sensible solutions to this problem, then surely the government say, well, we're going to do this. Thanks, Greens. Great work.
I know. I love how democracy works on paper and how it works in practice. Yes, worlds apart.
Yeah.
But you've got to use those avenues, and you always have to have hope for the best. Optimism is a great touchstone for me, because otherwise I just don't think I'd leave the garden.
Yes, fair enough. Yeah, you would not still be here, surely. And I mean, part of this as well, I would imagine, is creating a space for those stories that you mentioned about how the gaps in access are affecting people to be shared, and for people to realise the reality of reproductive healthcare access across the country. And I don't know if you're holding other forums. I know that you held one in Queensland, regional Queensland, with Penny this week.
Yeah, last night before, we were in Townsville.
Right,
We've got one coming up in Brisbane, actually, in the Angin, on Thursday of next week. I think that's the 19th, maybe.
Yeah.
And then we'll have the Senate inquiry hearings that happen after that, which will aspire to have national coverage and actual regional locations for those hearings. But, yeah, even in the limited amount of time where we've had to hear from people about their stories, there's a perception out there that because it's legal now, you can just get it. There's no barriers. But if you've actually tried to access it, the people that I've spoken to have said, I thought I could and then I bloody couldn't. And then the 9-week time frame passed and then I needed a surgical abortion and I don't have $800 to fly to Brisbane and stay overnight with my support person and arrange someone to look after my kids. And, you know, if you're in an abusive relationship, find some premise so that your controlling partner doesn't know what you're doing. Like there's layers and layers of complexity to this, which makes it all the more important. And you could just get that help locally no matter where you live. And it's a real equity issue because we know the regions miss out on good quality healthcare. There's often shit public transport. There's often shit NBN, although that's frequently shit no matter where you live. But there is a real divide between the services that you can access in metro areas and rural and regional areas. And it's not fair. It shouldn't be that way. Like, we're a big country, but we kind of know that. So it's not like we couldn't plan to make sure that everyone can get the services they need no matter where they live. And I think that's what people deserve. And again, I think that's why we pay taxes and that's why we've organised ourselves in the way we have so that we can make sure people have the basics that they deserve.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's also the educational aspect of this inquiry looking at education and around reproductive health care. And I saw in an article, this ABC article about the inquiry, that apparently people are getting reproductive health advice from TikTok. Do you know about this? That's fucking concerning.
What are they talking about? The rhythm method or something? What are they talking?
Yeah, just pull out. Everything will be fine. No. God. So, firstly, get off TikTok. Secondly, don't listen to TikTok for your medical advice. And I say that as a parent of a 13-year-old who's like permanently glued to TikTok. But don't get your medical advice from TikTok or from the internet really at all. You know, seek advice from people who've got the qualifications to give you the right advice. And that's one of the terms of references of this inquiry is awareness of contraception, availability of things like long-acting reversible contraceptives. So because a lot of the medical folk aren't as familiar with what's new onto the market, and, you know, people who are seeking that obviously don't know. Yeah. So, misinformation about contraception is a big problem. You wouldn't believe it, but it is. And, this inquiry will look at that and how we can overcome that.
So we all march together towards the future.
Well, not all per se, just the ones who look like me.
It's called democracy.
So, quick change of pace before you go. We also want to talk about your other portfolio being democracy, because I know that, is it tomorrow? So this show will come out on Sunday, and then tomorrow being Monday, the hearings on the inquiry into the last federal election are starting, which I imagine that you will be. Are you going to hearings involved? What do the hearings actually cover? What does it consider?
So every election you do a review of the election, which is done by the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters, which I sit on. And so you basically hear from a whole range of people with a full spectrum of opinions on stuff, all of which is fascinating because it's about how you make democracy work better. And there's been like 10,000 submissions so far. So bless the Secretariat, they've been looking through all of those. And then from all of those multiple options, you get to choose witnesses who will come and give evidence in person, so you can kind of stress test their theories and ask them about their reform proposals. So we've got some so far of the time that I've had so far to prep. It's going to be a really good day on Monday, so that the hearings start on Monday, and there's a lot of, in my view, very sensible suggestions about reforming our system. Get the influence of big money out of elections and out of politics, which is welcome news because this isn't America. And
has some party, like, has anyone had a policy on that before?
It's almost someone like should have thought of this experts before. And have really well thought out policies. Anyway, I did find myself in vehement agreement with a lot of the submitters who are saying have spending caps so that the rich can't buy elections and plaster your cities with awful billboards that are moronic and thankfully unsuccessful. Have donations caps so that people can't buy access and influence and buy the policies that suit them but might be really terrible for the public interest. Have truth in advertising, so you can't have people just making stuff up like happens. And a variety of other things like lower the voting age so that kids 16 to 17-year-old can actually, if they want to, on a voluntary basis, have their say, because we've got super engaged young people these days. I sound like an old person when I call them young people. But 16 and 17-year-olds, like if they want to have a say, let them have a say. So there's a whole range of those sorts of proposals, all of which are Greens policy. So I love that kind of affirmation that we're on the right track and that these things will benefit democracy. And so I'm hopeful that we can use this inquiry as a kind of vehicle to say, well, it's not just the Greens proposing these ideas, they are actually independently good ideas that many of the experts and groups and organisations working in this area want to see happen. And, I live in hope that we might see some bravery from the new government to make some of those changes because they're long overdue. And it's interesting, I think the politics suits them now because you've just had Palmer with a big spend in the last two elections that has been a bit of a thorn in the side of Labor. You just had the Teals do really well and take Liberal seats, so a bit of a thorn in the side of the Libs. So paradoxically, you might finally see spending reform on elections because finally the two big parties are not the only ones that are benefiting disproportionately from the system. So the irony abounds, but whatever, let's get the outcome of making our democracy a bit less about big money and a bit more about people and outcomes. So, I'm optimistic.
And just to clarify that, Larissa, like when we're talking about spending caps, we're actually talking about capping the amount of money that people can donate, right? Because there's a lot of talk of like just different disclosure caps and real-time disclosures. Now, real-time disclosures are good, but we're actually talking about limiting about how much money rich people and corporations can put into the political system, right? And those are two different
Larissa
things.
can explain.
There's so many good ideas in that. Firstly, let's make sure you can't spend like $80 million on an election. So there's spending caps. So political parties can't spend above a certain amount on elections. They can't just flood your TV screens and like have your YouTube ads. Like the idea that there should be limits so that if you've got a whole ton of money, you don't get disproportionate access to kind of the public space. That's your spending cap, which we support. But then there's also your donations cap, which is where vested interests and usually industry bodies or big mining companies or gas companies make very generous donations to candidates and political parties and then also make promises about, well, come and work for me when you leave Parliament. We'll pay you all this money to do fuck all and to give us access to the halls of power. It's trying to stop that disproportionate influence through donations. And then lastly, the transparency. You're so right. Of course, it would be an improvement to know who's donating what in a more timely manner because at the moment, federally, you've got to wait until the 1st of February every year before you find out who's donated, which is ridiculous because you can have an election in the meantime and someone might have just tipped in like $40 million or, some obscene amount and you don't find out about it until long after the election. So there's the timeliness and the disclosure. That's important. But it doesn't remove the influence of big money. No. It just means you've got to be honest about the fact that you're for sale. Well, you just shouldn't be for sale. So, yes to the disclosure reforms, but actually we need those donation caps. And my view and the Greens' view is that those caps should apply to everyone. It shouldn't just be a cap on coal companies or big pharma or the big banks from donating. It should actually be a cap on absolutely everyone. Even, not-for-profits who don't have the money to donate, but even renewable energy companies, even people who are doing things and businesses that are doing things that we think are positive, they shouldn't be able to buy influence either. It should be a level playing field. So we want to make sure that donations caps apply to everyone, including individuals and unions and organisations.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the fair way to do it.
Yeah.
We'll see if they're up for that.
Yeah. I've been thinking a little bit about, corporate donations and those kind of, donation reform and getting big money out of politics. And I do think that they're good steps, they're positive steps, they're something that we continue to fight for. But something I wonder is, will it ever really be enough to kind of make the change that we want to see? Because, like, for example, looking at Queensland, where they've capped donations and they have, in theory, banned, donations from property developers, even though they can still accept them at a federal level. So it's a bit dodgy. But increasingly, I feel as though the problem is that these major parties are set up to represent those interests. Like, that is their modus operandi. Like, they exist to serve those vested interests, and I just don't know whether we can do that just by taking away the donations now. I think closing the revolving door when it comes to lobbyists and jobs after politics would play a big part. But we're talking about generations and generations of political dynasties, of people who are family friends, who that's their politics, that they believe their job is to continue the profits of these corporations. And I'm like, ultimately, we should pass and fight for these electoral reforms, but we really just need to get these people and this politics out of our parliament and our political system if we really want to break that grip of capital on our entire, on our country.
I agree, Emerald. I agree. And it remains to be seen whether the reforms that we might be able to make, depending on the level of bravery of the other parties, it remains to be seen, will that break the nexus of that deep cultural control of various different interest groups over political parties. And, I mean, you have to hope that it will make some difference. But I agree with you. Structurally, we've got a real problem. And I think probably what is more likely to make change is the fact that the Greens and the independents, who now get called the Teals, are breaking the back of the two-party system. I think that will probably have at least equal influence with donations reform and spending caps to try to modernise the larger parties. But I must say, I don't care if the major parties modernise or not. Like, that is their problem. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. People will keep responding positively because they actually want their interests to be represented and they'd like the problems in their lives to be addressed and reduced. And if the major parties can't learn from that, well, see ya. We'll replace you.
Winning their seats.
We're fine to do that job. Like, we think we'll do a good job and we know our intentions are good and we want to help people and protect nature. So, if they don't want to take the lessons, well, that's so be it. We'll just, I think people will continue to stop voting for them. And they might change their ways and maybe it'll be too late, maybe not. But, ultimately we want a democracy that works for people, that is guided by science and, not driven by money, not driven by personal gain, not driven by the promises of some bullshit lobbying job in the future. That's, genuinely about the public interest. And I come from the not-for-profit sector before Parliament, so that's something I feel really strongly about, is the not-for-profit community ethic that I think should be driving decision makers. And, I'm sure all politicians want to make a difference. You would hope that that's why they're in politics. But, I'm not sure they all share that view that the community and the not-for-profit ethics should be driving decisions. I think a little bit of ego and greed does start to creep in if it wasn't there in the first place.
Speaking of ego, there was a story that you probably will have seen this week, Larissa, that we wanted to get your thoughts on in the, electoral space. This story about Mark Latham. So,
oh my
Sydney
God,
Morning
I didn't even
Herald.
read it because I just went, I'm not reading about that prick. So I'm sorry.
That's a good policy.
That's a good.
That's generally a good
you
rule
made the
for
right
law.
decision.
Rule for life.
So,
That's fine.
The Sydney Morning Herald reported that Mark Latham, former federal Labor leader, now One Nation senator in
General
the New South Wales.
Yep.
Yes,
Hungry
general
Jack's
shit
patron,
person.
yes.
Jesus.
He is planning to resign before the next New South Wales state election so that there will be a casual vacancy which he can choose a replacement for and then run again.
Yeah, and choose himself.
Well, yeah, and that's right. So then win another term.
I saw the headline and I just couldn't face it.
I think that we saw this because Antony Green then tweeted about it and effectively said, so he said, can Mark Latham resign his current New South Wales upper house seat, win a new 8-year term in March and then nominate a replacement to the 4-year balance of his current term? it appears to be perfectly legal. And he's done this whole post on it. But he's relying on the fact, obviously, that One Nation probably couldn't win just on the strengths of their party and their shit politics and, but they may be able to win based on Mark Latham's celebrity name recognition. And then he just ushers someone in to fill the rest of his term. So undemocratic.
The mind boggles. But it's interesting. So he thinks he's got a better chance of winning now than in 4 years' time, which is why he wants to go now to shore himself up. So I would say, you're reading the room right, Mr. Latham.
True.
People think your shit divisive politics are not helping them. And you're pointing the finger at the people who you say are causing these problems, but you're not proposing any solution. And actually it's the system and our poor government that are creating those problems. So I just think that people are getting a little bit smarter and they're realising that, it's a divisive tactic and it's actually a diversionary tactic to try and paint your fellow human as your enemy and the architect of your problems when in fact they're all systemic issues. That's probably not very well expressed, but
that's what they do.
I'm going to read that article now and read Antony Green's view. And I mean, he would know. He's a good expert.
Yeah.
So that clearly is an issue that you can have an individual manipulating the political system to further their own personal objectives, as you said, the ego of the man.
Yeah. I mean,
but their vote tanked in Queensland. I know less about their support level in New South Wales, but I have to believe that they're really stupid politics and their point the finger type politics, usually at brown people or poor people, which is kind of ironic because you would think that that's in fact some of their voter
more
base.
Teachers for Mark Latham. I think he heads public school teachers, anyone in the union.
Women much either.
And not a big fan of women.
Not a big fan of the ladies. Except if they do what he likes. So I mean, I shouldn't swear, but I don't think very highly of Mr. Latham.
When it comes to him,
no, it's fine. So he steps down. So and another One Nation candidate takes that for the next 4 years. He runs again and wins an 8-year term. So you've got two One Nation people in the upper house in New South Wales. At least for the next 4 years, you'd have those two. Yeah, right.
So what he's also saying is, no one's as good as me.
Exactly.
The only person
I
who
can win a seat for
is me.
Right.
Imagine if you did that, Larissa. That's what I don't. I don't think that.
Because we have good people.
Yeah, but it's true.
Maybe take a look at your own shit party and fix your policies, and then win because people agree with you. Not just because you'll get on telly for saying something stupid and divisive, and people think you're saying what you really think.
Yeah, and we did that, right? But I know that we were very scared that we wouldn't. We had this opportunity to win a second senator in Queensland. We knew that it was possible, but it wasn't going to be bloody easy, and especially doing it with someone with no name recognition. Penny is fantastic, but not you, Larissa. I think that we knew that obviously it would, have been easier to re-elect a senator, to re-elect someone who is quite well known and popular like yourself, than it is to elect a new person. But One Nation's solution to that is just keep using the same celebrity candidate. And I don't know though. I didn't read. Maybe I should read Antony's article in more detail because I think he was saying. But the detail, it's like you couldn't do this in the Senate because the House would technically, even though the Greens could fill the vacancy, if the House knew that we were doing this dodgy thing, they could refuse to accept that. Is that right? Whereas in New South Wales Legislative Council, it's like they don't.
I don't know. I mean, our electoral systems are so complicated. And I think you've got to apply the pub test, which I hate that phrase, but I think in this case it's a good example.
Sniff
Most
test?
people would see that sniff test. Yeah, that's a bit
People say that.
weird. Anyway, moving on. I think most people would think that's an abuse of power and it's an abuse of a system and it's not reflecting what people voted for. And, so I think I'll take a look at that and I'll make sure that can't be done federally. It's not been done federally before, so that would I'm sure it's occurred to people before. So if it hasn't been done, maybe that's because it's not able to be done. But, he certainly got a headline out of it, didn't he? And now we're talking about him. So, Yeah,
that's right.
mission
Well,
accomplished.
his claim, for the record, I should say, he's not trying to rot the system. It's not all about him. It's because he wants to renew his mandate because he thinks that the 8 years is so long. So he wants to make sure that, people really support him, putting aside the fact that he's going to then usher in someone who has never been voted for by the people of New South Wales. But no, it's about renewing his mandate, Larissa. He's just a good guy. He loves democracy.
People.
Well, perhaps the New South Wales state government could look at some reforms on an urgent basis to stop that from happening.
Yes, that would be good. Or the Victorian state government, we're coming up to a state election here. We've still got the group ticket insane system that we got rid of federally a few years ago, in which people will vote for the people who get the most votes don't necessarily win the spots, of course.
I know. I can't believe that the Victorian Labor government haven't fixed that yet.
Yes, very strange. It's almost like they benefit from it. Yeah.
Yeah. We copped a lot of political flack for making that change, but we absolutely did the right thing and resolutely stand by that because people should get what they vote for. You should not have someone getting, 0.8 of the vote, 0.8 of 1% of the vote who somehow gets elected over someone who's got, say, 8 or 9% of the vote. It's obscene.
Yeah.
And it just encourages all that backroom dealing, which people find so off-putting, rightly so.
Yeah, which costs like $30,000 if you pay $30,000 to these preference whisperer people. Like it's crazy amounts of money. It's awful.
I know. I mean, honestly, how the hell did we organise ourselves in this way? Who thought of this? Fix it already.
Fix it, please. You can go to democracyforsale.net too. That's a website that Lee Rhiannon set up way back in the day that's still maintained. It tracks a whole bunch of donations, corporate donations to all the various parties that the Greens set up and maintain, which is a really great resource and a good reminder of just how much. And that's just the money we know about, despite all the dark money that washes through our politics. So it's good to keep in mind. And I really hope there were some noises, I think, from Don Farrell before the election from the Labor side of politics expressing some enthusiasm for some kind of donation cap stuff in the light of Palmer's effect on politics. So fingers crossed with the advocacy of people like yourself, Larissa, we'd love to see that kind of stuff get through for sure.
Yeah, that's what we were working for, Tom, pushing as far as we can to get those reforms. And I'm encouraged by the noises, and let's hope that there'll be the follow through as well.
Well, thanks so much for talking to us on our show, Larissa.
You're
it's been
so
an absolute
welcome.
joy.
It's been really lovely.
Larissa, very full circle.
Yes, very full circle. Thank you for being Emerald's friend and being a great senator.
You're welcome.
Thanks for getting me along to that first door knock that you didn't even know that I only went to because it said on the flyer or wherever it was, the event, that you would be there. And I was like, all right, I'm going.
Oh, now I'm going red. I'll go to more door knocks, I promise.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Larissa. Take it easy.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Queensland's everywhere. Queensland's everywhere.
Ring, ring. Wait, I think I've done this bit before. Damn it.
Hello, stop calling me, please.
But I'm calling you to action. The Victorian Greens election is coming up, obviously, on Tom's birthday, 26th of November. And so there are many, many events that you can attend, support if you are in Victoria. Have a look at victoria.greens.org.au/events. We'll put that link in the show notes. See if there's one near you. If you're not already out there door knocking, letterboxing, calling, whatever, signed up for a booth. I don't know if that's happening yet, but surely soon.
Yep.
Go do it.
Door knocks, hosting a placard or a yard sign or whatever. It's all kicking off now. And yes, it is, 4 or 5 weeks away from the actual day itself. There is a real chance that Greens could not only hang on to all the seats we have, but also pick up a few more if you're in Victoria and you've had to think about it. We'd love your help.
Outside of Victoria, going big picture, globally, if you want to support women in Iran right now, obviously it's pretty hectic. The, uprisings that have been happening in Iran, and you can donate to the Center for Human Rights in Iran, the Abdurrahman Bourahmand Center for Human Rights in Iran. It documents human rights violations and it helps victims of those violations to share their story in both Farsi and English. So we'll put the link in the show notes to donate, support their work. It's iranhumanrights.org.
Or iranrights.org for Abdurrahman Bourahmand Center for Human Rights. Solidarity to all the women, all the protesters in Iran right now. Maybe not the teal approach of just introducing sanctions on Iran and, I don't know, getting people to invade. I mean, on that basis, should we put some sanctions on the US who are taking away women's abortion rights would be kind of cool. But there are other better ways that you could both stand in solidarity with people who are protesting and spread change and secure change. That's sorry to the fourth most powerful people on the power list in the country, but I don't agree with you. As we said, rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening right now. Follow us on social media at Serious Danger AU on Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe to us on YouTube, please. If you're watching this on YouTube, that would be awesome. Go to seriousdangerpod.com for all your Serious Danger needs. And if you want to say hello, you can send us an email, hello@seriousdangerpod.com.
If you subscribe on YouTube, if you watch us on YouTube, you can see that my nails match my earrings.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's true. Huh? And yes, please help us get to 500 patrons as well. Sign up as a patron if you haven't already. And we'll let you know how close we are to our goal when we next speak, sweet lovers.
I don't know if we've arranged any kind of punishment if we don't reach that goal or any reward, indeed, if we do make it.
10 lashings. I don't. Yeah, if we don't reach that, we stop the show. Just kidding. Bye.
Goodbye.
Serious Danger Australia.